Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where each week we give you another episode of what's happening here on our Northeast Iowa 21-acre homestead. My husband Alvin and I have been married for 25 years, and we have 7 children. 5 of those children still live at home. Our oldest 2 are married and no longer live at home, so this means we also have 2 son-in-laws and 1 grandson so far. So on our 21-acre homestead, we seek to preserve the self-sufficient lifestyle of our Old Order Mennonite heritage for the next generation. We involve the children in every aspect of the homestead, from raising and harvesting our own meat, gardening and preserving to fill the family's larder, or preserving the dairy from the family milk cows, plus all the many other skills that develop the character and integrity and relationships of a family that seeks to bring glory and honor to their Heavenly Father. Hello everyone, welcome back to a very special episode of Homesteading with the Zimmermans. My name's Ruth Ann Zimmerman. This is my husband Alvin, and you don't see him a lot on our videos because he works full-time. So mostly when I'm filming during the daytime when he's at work. And then this is our son Harrison and our son Kendrick. Can you say how old you are?
9.
Kendrick's almost 10. Is that why you faltered a little bit? Next week you're going to be 10? And
8.
Harrison is 8. And today we're going to be talking about one of my very favorite subjects, the family milk cow. And we get lots and lots of questions, but we're going to start out with a question that encompasses a whole lot of other questions within it. And that question is, does it pay or is it worth it to have a family milk cow? So I'm going to start a little bit with telling our story of how we started with a family milk cow. As we learned a lot. So Elvin, will you tell a little bit about the dairy that you grew up on?
I grew up on a dairy farm. We had a large family, of course, and we
13.
had 13, yes, 12 siblings. Yes, and we grew up on a like a 50-head small commercial dairy farm. So everybody always had chores, and you learned how to milk cows and feed calves from a very young age. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so his cow knowledge was really, really much larger than mine when we got our first milk cow, because I grew up, we had a family milk cow, and she was very tame. Like, we did whatever we wanted. I mean, she must have been extremely patient, because I remember it felt like it took us hours to milk. Does it feel like it takes you hours to milk?
Not really.
Not really. Okay, I just remember just goofing off, and that poor cow. So we did whatever we wanted with our family milk cow. So when we got our first family milk cow, of course, money was tight. So we weren't going to be able to afford a $3,000 milk cow, right? One that's already in milk and is a dairy cow. So what did we do, Elvin?
I started looking on Marketplace, and well, first
Craigslist.
of all, I had this idea that we were a young family with only a few kids. So I'm like, we don't need a large cow. We will get a small cow. So I started looking at the Dexter breed, and discovered that yes, they do eat less and they do produce less milk. So I started looking for Dexters.
And that was part of the reason we were looking for. So a little bit of backstory: we had milk goats, and I liked the milk goats, but Elvin didn't really care for the goat milk. And I remember growing up, we had all the butter we wanted, all the butter and cream we wanted. So I started dreaming of butter and cream. But we also knew that with a full-size dairy cow, you get like 4 to 6 gallons of milk a day, and we knew we weren't prepared for that. And then the other thing was the cost of feeding such a large animal and the manure, like those are all things that we considered, like we knew what we were getting into. So we found a Dexter. She was a heifer. She had been sold to us as exposed. Like she had been on the pasture with a bull. And now looking back, if I would see her again, I would probably walk away and be like, nope, we're not bringing that cow home. Can you tell a little bit about what she looked like? Or what, like, so she was probably about 9-month-old. So she was too young to be bred, and she had, those of you that know cows, she had the wild eyes, and that was probably the reason this guy was selling her, because she wasn't a good fit for his program, and she was wild. She was really wild. There's a couple days, like the first couple weeks, she just stood in the corner of her stall snorting every time we got close to her. And yeah, she was not bred, and so we brought her home. We tamed her up fairly well, and we got her bred. We rented a mini bull from, and see, that's the thing with Dexters, they're not really big, so you can't just use anybody's bull. But we found somebody that had mini Herefords, and we rented a mini Hereford bull. And she did get pregnant, and that first lactation, it was wild. It was really, really, it was rough. I had these visions of, a gentle family milk cow. She was not that. It took, like, she wouldn't come into the barn, even towards the end of that first lactation. It took 2 or 3 of us to get her into the barn. She wasn't safe with the kids. They couldn't go into her pasture. So would you say that a lot of this was accentuated because she was the only cow?
That was a big part of it. She didn't have a herd to be with. Cows are very much a herd animal. So we became her herd. And they're used to pushing each other around, and there's a hierarchy. There's always a boss cow. And here she's all by herself, no other animals. And so when we go to move her, do anything with her, we are her herd. So she wasn't really easy to deal with.
No, so she tried to establish dominance and all that with us every time she came into the stall for milking. And here's the other thing, we didn't have a stanchion for her to go into. Like, we just had a box stall, because that's how we milked our cows at home, was just a box stall. So she could move all around, and we were kind of ill-prepared. So that's kind of the story of our first milk cow. So we had her through 2 lactations, and her second lactation was definitely better. And one of the things, and I did end up, so with the first lactation, I had planned to milk her by hand, but it got to the point where it wasn't safe for me to milk by hand because she kept, like, kicking, and she didn't just, like, kick a little bit. Like, she kicked out the side, and she meant business. So it wasn't safe. Elvin got me a milker, and through the first whole lactation, we milked her with the milking machine, but then by the second lactation, she had calmed down enough that I could milk by hand. The kids never milked. Actually, the kids did milk her with the milking machine. They never milked her by hand, and you had to be really fast because her patience was really short. But one of the things that I do believe made her a better milk cow with the second lactation was she then had a herd mate because she had her calf. So that we then had 2 cows, and that helped a lot. So she was able to establish dominance out on the pasture, and when she came into the milking stall, she was more relaxed. So that brings us to a couple questions. Is if you only have 1 cow, and you're having problems with her, part of that is probably going to be because she's alone and she's using you as a herd mate and trying to establish dominance over you. And then the other thing, second lactation. Don't give up on a cow on her first lactation. The second lactation is very likely to go better. And then there was another question. Did you ever eat a milk cow? And yes, that's what we did with Smokey. So me as a milkmaid, you get very intimate with your milk cow, and you become intimate with them, and you can't imagine eating them. So I've never eaten a cow that I was currently milking. Like, we dried them off, and with our first milk cow, we with this little Dexter, Elvin was like, well, she's not a real nice milk cow. We couldn't get her bread back. Like, we lost access to the mini bulls. Couldn't get her bread back. Anyway, I'm getting long-winded about this first milk cow. But, so I'm like, no, we can't eat her. We can't eat our milk cow. No way. And he's like, all right, then. We'll just put her to the sale barn or something. And I'm like, well, I can't put her to the sale barn either. Like, I don't know who's going to buy her and what they're going to do to her. And so we just kind of came to an impasse that way, right? And one day, I was watching her in the pasture. She was dried up. I wasn't milking her anymore. I was watching her in the pasture. And the sun, she was all over black. The sun was shining down on her, and she was in grass up to her belly. And I send a picture to Elvin. I took a picture. I send it to Elvin, and I'm like, it would be foolish to not harvest her and put this meat in our freezer. She's eating the grass that grows on our property. She's soaking up all the sunshine. This is quality food for our family, and if we sell her, she's just going to go in somebody else's freezer. So yes, we have eaten 2 milk cows, haven't we? Mm-hmm. We're probably still working on eating the one. Anyway, so that's the story. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the story of our very first milk cow. So let's dive into, did you want to say something about, you know what? The Dexter milk, like her milk, it was the best milk. Out of all the milk cows I've ever had, hers was the absolute best. It was kind of naturally homogenized. The cream separated very, very slowly. And even when the cream did separate and I scraped it off, the milk was still very creamy. And it was just really, really good. So that was the one thing that I do miss about that milk cow. But, the other thing that we came to, the Dexters, they didn't give a lot of milk. Like, at peak production, she probably gave about 2 gallons. All said and done, not sharing any with the calf. She gave about 2 gallons, and as our family grew, and I started being more, passionate about, growing our own food, I started wanting more milk. I started wanting enough milk to make a 4-gallon batch of cheese, and I wanted to buy no more butter at the grocery store. So that's another thing that brought us to, we are ready for a dairy cow that gives us 4 gallons a day. And that's when we then went Brown Swiss and Jersey, and all of, we moved away from the Dexters. And I've heard that some Dexters are tame and some are wild, and you don't ever really know which you're going to get. But ours was from the wild Dexter family. Wouldn't you say? Yeah.
Definitely so.
She was definitely from the wild Dexter family. Mm-hmm. So that brings us kind of to the overall question of, does it pay to keep a family milk cow? And the things that we're going to look at are the time, the resources that you put into a family milk cow, and then what you get from her. And we're gonna say why it pays for us to have a family milk cow, and then hopefully you'll have a little more information and you'll be able to decide on your own if it would pay for you to have a family milk cow.
Well, only if you turn. He doesn't really know.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the input into a family milk cow. For me, the biggest input that I have is the resource of time and energy. So that's a big, big factor. If you're considering getting a family milk cow, you want to consider, do I have the time and energy that it takes to milk twice a day for a season, once a day, and then to take care of all the milk. So that's my biggest input is time and energy. Then in the summer, even though they're out and eating grass, we do rotational grazing, so that takes some time every day to move their pasture. And I have, a little workforce that surrounds me, but still the energy that it takes is mostly mine because I have to manage
And
everything.
management.
I have to manage everything, and even though the boys can milk on their own, it's not something I would let them do, for 4 or 5 days in a row without me being there making sure the cows are empty, and also the the commodity that I'm putting all this time and energy into, what I'm getting is raw milk. So I often, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a little controlling about this, but I want to be there to make sure the milk is as clean as possible when I bring it into the house, especially for cheese making. So that's one of the reasons I have to be committed and I have to be there for almost 99% of the gallons of milk that come into the house. I have been personally involved in thousands of gallons of milk that come into the house. so that's my biggest resource, or my biggest input that I have to have is time and energy. And then of course cost of the cow up front. Yeah, you have to have the cost of the cow up front, and a good milk cow. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been on Marketplace to see what they're.
But they vary a lot depending on what you're looking for. And it varies within breeds and locations too, of course. If you live in in an area where there is a lot of dairy, you'll obviously have a lot more options. But you could probably expect to pay at least somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,500 for a cow in milk that is bred back, which would be preferable in my eyes.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't have to worry about breeding her back, which that was probably our biggest learning
That
curve.
can be one of the most frustrating things. Even commercial growers say that that can be one of their biggest challenges, and it is directly tied to nutrition. On the diet of your cow will determine how easily she is. That has a direct correlation to getting her bred.
So for those of you that are just here for entertainment and aren't seriously considering getting a milk cow, so a cow has to have a calf in order to lactate, right? So let's say we buy a cow and she's pregnant, right? So she's in her dry period. So I'll take you through the year, what it would look like. You buy a cow, she's dry but pregnant. So then as soon as she has her calf, she begins producing milk.
For the calf.
For the calf and for the humans, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway.
She has more than enough.
She has more milk than the calf can ever drink. So the humans get some of it. Mm-hmm. And then she will produce milk for probably 2 years before she starts tapering off. But ideally, for the health of your cow, you want to get her bred within the first 3 months of her having her baby, of her freshening. It's called freshening when they have a calf. And you want to get her bred within like the first 3 months. That's ideal. Mm-hmm. Because contrary to what most people will say milk cows are skinny. I get it all the time on YouTube and social media that my milk cows are skinny. But that's how milk cows are supposed to look.
Depending milk cow on the breed.
Yeah, like beef cows will be a lot more stocky. But like Jerseys, all your typical milk cow breeds will look skinny. Or they'll look bony, put it that way. They'll look bony, and if they go too long into their lactation, they'll get over-conditioned, or they'll get fat, and then it's hard for them to get pregnant. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the things that we struggled with for 2 of our cows. Our first milk cows was getting them bred. So if you don't have access to a bull, and let's just admit it, most homesteads are not set up where they can keep a bull. And if you don't have access to one where you can rent it, then you're paying for somebody to artificially inseminate your cows. And of course your percentage of what's the word I'm looking for? your success rate for AI is lower than if you have a bull and you do live cover. So that was big for us. It was very disappointing when you can't get your milk cow pregnant, and that's kind of how we ended up
your
with
milk dries up.
Yeah, and she dries up, and so that's kind of how we ended up with 2 milk cows, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
in order to always have milk, you need to be able to stagger them so that one is in milk while the other one is dry or almost ready to freshen.
And we started realizing that, if we can't get this one bred, we got to have a backup plan because we want to have milk for the family. So we had to, have a backup plan. So our black and white cow that we have now, she's Normandy Jersey Cross. Her name is Norma, and she looks like a Holstein, but she's not. She's a Normandy Jersey Cross. She was our plan A. She was our brand new start. She was confirmed pregnant. She was in milk. She was about 4 months due, close to due. So she was about 5 months pregnant, and we paid a pretty penny for her too, right? She was A2. She was everything we were looking for, except they told us she's not a tame cow. She's not a beginner's cow. She's not kid friendly.
You think we would have learned?
And we drove about 3 hours for her, and she was wild-eyed, and I was like, man, what have we gotten ourselves into? But he told me right away, he's like, this cow's a good cow. Like, she's not crazy. He could tell she was a good cow, and she wasn't halter trained or anything. And you see us now with Norma, and she's headstrong, but the kids can handle her. We put a halter on her, we lead her around. She's a really, really good cow. She's a hard milker. I don't know what makes a cow a hard milker. Why does it take so much more energy, like muscles, to milk her than it does to milk the Jersey?
It can vary even within breeds. It can vary the size of the bag and the size of the teats. But what makes it milk hard is if they have really short teats, you can't get a good grip on the handle, and you can't get as much squeezing force. And the other one is the seal in the bottom. It's some of their spigots are easily open and some are not. It just varies.
Okay, so that would be what makes her a hard milker, because she has nice big hand milking teats. She has big teats, but the amount of milk, the amount of pressure that it takes to squeeze milk out of that hole is a lot more. And so she has pretty tiny holes, so it takes a lot of hand strength to hand milk her. And so therefore she's my cow. And she's also, because she's headstrong, she takes advantage of anybody that she can push around. So it's very important that the boys don't handle her day in and day out. She needs a firm hand. But thankfully I'm a little more experienced now, and I can handle her. And she obeys for the boys. She's an adult's cow. Anyway, so we got her, and they asked her, the dairy that we got her from, they said, do you want us to dry her off before you bring her home? And for those of you that are in the same situation where you're getting a cow that's about to be dried off, I said, no, I don't want you to dry her off, because I want to learn to know her before I dry her off, so that I know what to expect when she freshens. So I milked her for probably another month then before we dried her off. So in the meantime, we had friends that moved to a different homestead, and when the snow all melted, they discovered that what they thought was pasture land was just swamp. And so they decided to get rid of their Jersey milk cow with a heifer calf on her side, and they gave us a really good price, and it was just too good to say no. It was a good deal. A Jersey.
And great friends.
It was good friends, and we knew that the cow was everything they said she would be, and we brought her home, and that was the first Jersey we've ever had. And I am in love with her. I don't care. She's never been milk tested, so we don't know if she has A2 milk. But she is a kid-friendly cow, and she milks so easy. She never causes us any trouble, and she's like a big puppy dog, and she gives me so much cream. I call her my butter cow because she puts butter in our freezer. So that's kind of the story of how we got 2 milk cows. And
We had 3.
we had 3 at one time. Yeah, and then we ate one.
Yeah.
We had a brown Swiss that we couldn't get bred back, and we decided, and also our brown Swiss ate so much, which this brings us back to the cost of feeding a cow. Our brown Swiss, she was a pig. She ate so much. And I recently talked with somebody else that has a brown Swiss, and they said that they've decided that they need to give her a ration. She can't have free access because she'll just stand there and eat all day, and she ate a round bale in like 3 days. And I said, yeah, that was our experience with our brown Swiss too, is she was a pig, and they should have a ration. So that's why we ate the brown Swiss. But she was really nice. I loved her as a milk cow too. But this brings us back to, there's a difference in cows. Like some take a lot of feed, and they take a lot of feed to maintain their condition and to make their milk and grow their babies, right? But usually what's available to us as homesteaders for family milk cows is the ones that the big commercial dairies that the cows that don't produce enough to make it worth a big commercial dairy keeping them, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so both of our cows are not big producers. Our Normandy Jersey mix, that's why she was sold, because she didn't produce enough for them to make it worthwhile feeding her. But here's the good side. Usually those cows that don't produce enough, they also don't eat so much. They're just kind of, they're not, what do some people, they're not your race car cows. Like, they're just kind of easy keepers. They don't give you 8 gallons of milk, but they also don't eat as much. So
Depending on the breed.
on the breed, yeah. But even within the breed, like, some Jerseys will require a lot of feed to keep their condition, so they don't get too skinny. And others, like our Jersey, she's not a big producer. Her metabolism doesn't put everything into the milk. Her metabolism seems to keep some for meat on her bones. And those are the cows, personally, that I like. I don't need them to put all of their energy into giving me 8 gallons of milk. I like when they're putting some of their energy into keeping meat on their bones. And a lot of cows nowadays are bred to be heavy producers, because that's what makes the dairy farmers money, is the milk, right? And then they feed them like this fine-tuned, super good diet. But a lot of homesteaders don't have, we don't have a dietitian. What's the guy called that comes to a dairy farm?
Yeah, it would be,
A dietitian. No, what's it called? There's a term for it.
Like, it'd be like a nutritionist.
Nutritionist, that's what it is. It's a nutritionist or nutritionalist, yeah, something like that. Okay, so then, he'll come around and he'll, he'll, tell them exactly what they need to feed their cows, to keep them healthy, and so they produce a lot of milk. We don't have access to that. I mean, we would if we wanted to, but it's just easier for us to have cows that require less feed and give us less milk.
We are low tech.
Yeah, we like to keep
feed
things.
our cows hay. We feed them alpha hay in the wintertime.
Which is like a fermented alfalfa. And I'll give you the link to what we feed them.
And they get a little bit of grain.
When it's really cold
the
outside, they'll get like, what we feed them is like calf grower, just a little bit of calf grower in the wintertime to help them. Like, it's really cold outside right now, like 30 below. And so on days like this, I make sure they get a little grain. But otherwise, we feed them hay and fermented alfalfa. So that's cost input. So if you have enough land, you could make your own. You could grow your hay. Then you need the resources
You
to
need
bale
equipment.
it. You need equipment to bale it, and we would have enough property to grow enough hay for our cows for all winter. How many cows do we have right now?
7, 6, 7.
How many cows do we have?
Okay. 6.
Did you
6
count
cows
did
and
you,
the small ones too.
the two? Did you count Sunny and Moose?
8.
So we
Okay.
have like 6 adult sized cows
And two
and
young
2
stock.
young stock. So yeah, you could raise all your own hay.
Would
but
we
you-
have enough on our property with our 20 acres? Would we be able to raise enough hay? But the reason we don't,
The reason we don't grow our own hay is you need a tractor, you need a mower cutter, you need a hay rake, you need a hay baler, you need a wagon, you need a lot of equipment, and that's great. But I work a job, and my experience is when it's time to cut hay, I'm at work. When it's time to bale hay, the rain's coming, I'm at work. So we do not cut and bale our own hay. You could always have someone do it for you.
yeah, you could rent it out, you could hire it out, and then usually they get paid in some of the hay. They get paid with some of the hay. So there's quite a few ways to do it. What we do now is our property, our farmland is in hay. We rent it out. That farmer bales it and takes it home to his farm, and we use the
Gives us
money.
some.
He does give us. We do. Yeah, he gives us some small square bales that we like to use. But we then use the money that he pays us for renting our land to buy big round bales for our cows. And that works really well for us. And we have, we live in a farming community, so we have multiple resources where we can buy round bales, and we try to we try to kind of decide how many we need before, in the fall we try to stock
We
up.
buy in the summer.
Yeah, we buy in the summer when people are baling hay. But sometimes in the middle of the winter, we decide, what, it's been really cold, the cows are eating a lot, and,
Or
our
it was
steers,
poor quality.
or it was poor quality hay and they went through it faster, or our steers are a year older than they were last winter and they're consuming more, and then we have to buy more hay in. But definitely hay is our biggest cost as far as money goes. Hay for winter, because here our cows will normally eat hay from October through May. So that's over half of the year.
Depending on what region you live in, you may find that you don't need hardly any hay, or if you live in the northernmost regions, you will need even more hay.
Yeah, a good place to help you decide how much property you need to keep a cow is your local extension office. I think here they say 1 acre per cow, 1 to 2 acres for a cow-calf pair, and but your
That
region,
would roughly relate to a dairy cow as well.
yes, it would be the same as for a beef cow as a dairy cow.
Approximately.
Yeah. So your local extension office should be able to tell you how much property you need to be able to feed a cow-calf pair for a whole year. So that's definitely our biggest cost input is hay. But here's why it pays for us to have a family milk cow. So time and energy, right? But the reason it pays for us to have a family milk cow is, number one, the cows that we have, even if we just had 1 cow, we could make this work. We don't buy any dairy products from the grocery store, not a one. So that to us is worth it right there. Even if the quality of what we were getting from the grocery store, the nutritional quality, even if the nutritional quality from the grocery store were exactly the same as what we are bringing in from the barn, even then it would be worth it, because we're a large family. But the fact that what I can make here at home has more nutrition in than what I can buy at the grocery store, that just adds to the value that our family milk cow has here on the farm. And then the other thing that brings so much value, where she brings so much value to our farm, is the fact that it gives our boys chores. Like, it gives our family a reason that they have to get up at 5:45 and milk the cow before they go to school. That is character qualities that I would find really hard to imitate without the family milk cow. So for our family, those are the two reasons why it's worth it for us to have a family milk cow. So if you are at the point where, do I want a family milk cow? Is it worth it for my family? If you're asking those questions, is it worth it for my family to have a family milk cow? I would say if you're looking just to replace your milk, the milk that you're drinking, then it's not going to be worth it to you, because you can't possibly drink enough of milk, just plain fresh milk, to make it worth all the time and energy resources that go into it.
Try goats.
Yeah, try goats. That's a good. Try a goat or sheep if you're simply looking to replace your drinking milk, or the herd share option. Try a herd share if you're simply looking to replace your the milk that your family's drinking. Try a herd share, or I've seen some families where 3 or 4 families go together and buy a milk cow, and then they also share the responsibilities. So your time and energy input isn't quite as big that way. You might just milk twice a week. And then you'd have enough milk for your family to drink for that week. And that way your resource of time and energy isn't wasted. But if you are saying, if you're ready to replace all your dairy from the grocery store, then you're ready for a family milk cow. Then it's worth it to you. And then also when she has a baby, you can raise that baby, and it's beef in the freezer. So that's another reason that our family milk cows are really worth having for us, because they have a baby every year that's a beef in our freezer every year.
That basically cost us the cost of hay.
Yes, a beef in our freezer, that our overhead is just simply the cost of our hay in the winter. So that is why it pays for us to have a family milk cow. So Kendrick and Harrison, we're going to interview you. And Kendrick, can you tell us what is your favorite thing about having a family milk cow? Did you forget what you were going to say?
No, I didn't really think about it because.
No.
Harrison, are you ready? Okay, you come on this side. Come in here. You think about what you want to say. Come right here, Harrison.
Okay.
So, Harrison, what is your favorite thing about having a family milk cow?
The food that we get from it.
Oh, like what?
Like the cheese curds and the butter.
Cheese curds and butter.
Uh-huh.
What is your least favorite thing about having a family milk cow?
You have to wake up every morning and milk the cow.
You have to wake up every morning and milk the cow. At what time?
5:52.
5:52. Is that about what time Mom calls you to go milk?
Because I always see.
You always see when you come downstairs, it's 5:52.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Do you like to do milk cow chores in the winter or the summer? What's your favorite?
Winter.
In the winter.
Because when it's in the summer, you have to swap flies.
When it's in the summer, then yeah, flies are an issue in the summer, aren't they? Yeah. In winter, there's no flies. All right. Thank you.
Answer.
That was a good answer. Okay, Kendrick. What is your favorite thing about having a family milk cow?
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, the same as Harrison's.
The same as here. Let's the same as Harrison. All the food. What's your favorite milk what's your favorite dairy product? Meaning, what's the favorite food that we get from the milk cow?
Oh, probably steak.
Oh, steak. That's good.
That's good.
Can we skip to pig so I can say bacon?
Oh, we're not going to talk about pigs today, but I know you really like bacon. So what is your favorite milk product?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. That's a good one.
That is good.
And what is your least favorite thing about having a milk cow?
That it gives away all of our movie time when we have to wake up on Saturday.
So on Saturday mornings, you have to go milk the cow instead of watching cartoons.
Yeah, but that's the best part because I like going to put the milk on.
So can you tell people how you've just learned how to put the milker on?
Well, I didn't just learn. I knew it.
You knew how, but on Saturday, you put the milker on all by yourself.
And the other time.
And the time before. Yeah, you did. Yeah. So the boys and I have recently started this thing where neither one of our cows are giving a whole lot of milk right now. They're about to be dried off. So the boys have started doing Saturday morning chores without me. They do it all by themselves. And I get to stay in the house and we get to have coffee together. And then on Sunday morning, they get to sleep in, get up and watch cartoons while I go do the chores all by myself. So that way we kind of both get a day off. And Elvin does the chores whenever I'm not here. That's probably one of the biggest questions we get to is how do you go on vacation? And how do you manage milking twice a day? And how important is it that you milk at the same time every day? But mostly people want to know, like when you're milking twice a day, how do you manage going away at night? And so we milk twice a day for probably the first 3 or 4 months after they freshen. And that's the most intense time. But I usually try to milk like at 5 o'clock. That way if we have evening plans, if I have to scoot it up to 4:30 so that we can go away for supper, it's not a big deal. And mornings, it's not super important that you keep the milkings 12 hours apart, right? No. It's most important that you just do them around the same time every day. Yeah. It's not as crucial as people think. Well, can you explain why it's crucial for commercial dairies to milk at the same time?
Well, cows are creatures of habit, of course, like humans. But when growing up on our dairy farm, we always started milking within a 5 to 10 minute window. We were always taught that was very important because, first of all, they will drop in production if you vary from that. They are used to coming in to be milked at a certain time, and they know when that time is coming, so they get used to it and they depend on that.
So you make more profit. If you're a commercial dairy, you make more profit if you're consistent with what time you milk.
Yeah, and consistency in milking time costs you zero.
Yeah,
So
consistency costs you zero, but it can make you more money. But personally, here on the homestead, we're not all about production, right? So it doesn't matter. I actually prefer for my cows to have an hour window of grace for me.
Or more.
Or more, yes. I don't usually worry too much about, on school day mornings, we're out there at 6 a.m. And guess what? On weekends, we're not out there till 8 a.m. And they're fine with that. The only time they get cranky at me is right after they freshen, when they're producing a lot of milk and their bags get really full and they get uncomfortable, right? And then I'll hear them fuss at me, and I'm more conscious of staying on time at that stage of their lactation. But like now, when they're not giving that much milk and they're not standing at the fence hollering at me because they're in pain, we vary, 2 hours. But yes, when we're milking twice a day, I try to have a late afternoon milking instead of an evening milking. So we might milk at 7 a.m. and again at 5 p.m. It doesn't have to be exactly 12 hours. You're just going to expect that wherever your longer window is, you're going to get more milk that next time. We're not, a lot of the habits that we hear about are from commercial dairies. But if you're not all about production, you don't have to stick to that. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I hope that answered a lot of your milk cow questions. I personally love my milk cows and could talk about them all day long. If you see me out and about and you don't know what to talk to me about, ask about milk cows. I really, really like to talk about my milk cows. Elvin just tolerates the milk cows. Yeah, he likes the milk cows because I like the milk cows. Is that what it is?
I don't hate cows.
No, you don't hate cows. No, and you're like Kendrick. You like the steaks too. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here. We will be back next week.
Thanks for watching.